That's right. It is time for the Fanatic Flyers pregame show as the Flyers start out what is a tough week of hockey. They'll play the team they're playing tonight twice, the Bruins, once tonight in Boston at TD Garden and Saturday at Wells Fargo Center, with the Blues in town in Philadelphia, that is, for the Halloween game coming up on Thursday. Flyers need to find some consistency. It's Jason Myrtetus, Chris Therien, and Brian Smith in Boston. And Bundy, team looking for some consistency right now. They've had spurts of good play, but it's come at the cost of them being down by multiple goals when they choose to do it.
Yeah, and that's not the kind of way that you want to play, nor the way that the coaching staff or the players on this team want the game or the flow of the game to go. I mean, when you're down 4-1 and then you muster up something with 2.5 minutes left of the game, it's fun and everything. It makes it interesting for 2 minutes. But if you pour it in early, and we'll get to the keys of the game, that'll be one of them tonight, really is giving yourself a chance. Giving yourself an opportunity, cleaning up the house, the defensive area. I just think that the Flyers came out flat against the Montreal Canadiens after a really, really good emotional win against Minnesota, and they just did not have it for whatever reason until late in that game, but it was late, and it was way too late, unfortunately, for them in that hockey game.
Bundy, I guess there is something to be said about that win against Minnesota, and you talked about it. You just mentioned it was emotional. I don't know if an emotional letdown is what we saw on Sunday, a physical letdown. I don't know. It's hard to chalk it up to that when you know the Montreal was in the same position. But, I guess just in the terms of them trying to get things going this season, it has been a little bit like a sputtering engine with a bit of a strange schedule here. Now they get into this rhythm, I think, after this game tonight where they have a game every other night, every third night, that sort of thing. And does that help with some consistency, you think, from a player perspective?
Well, yes, it does, Smitty. There's no doubt about it. But you want to have a better record than that, because what happens is when the games are coming fast and furious at you, it's you're asking a lot to go out and win 4 games in a row and to climb back in. And so a game like tonight becomes paramount. They need to figure out a way to find a way to get 2 points in Boston tonight. You don't want to fall too far behind it, or all those things you're talking about don't mean anything, because everybody just falls in with the pack all the way, and next thing you know, you're out of it by December 15th. This Flyers team needs to figure this out right now, and I mean finding a way to dig in and get a really hard road win here in Boston, a place that, quite frankly, I think I said it on Twitter, it's been a house of horrors for the Flyers. It really has.
Bundy, I remember last year, late in the season, it was a matinee game at Wells Fargo Center. Flyers playing the Bruins, and the Bruins, like you said, have had their way with the Flyers in Boston. Frankly, they had their way with the Flyers in Philadelphia. And I remember the term you used. This is how good this memory of mine is, because I don't waste time with hair clogging my brain. You said enough is enough. And they went out that day and they got a win at Wells Fargo Center. Boston's a team that will get your attention because of their stature in the NHL. They're off to a bit of an uneven start as well. Not like where the Flyers are, but they're hockey 500. But when you look at Boston, that's a team that'll get your attention right away. And you know that you can't get away with, frankly, they haven't gotten away with much this year, as indicated by their own record. But Boston will get your attention to make you realize we can't mess around in this game. We got to get off to a good start.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to give away too many of my keys, but they got guys on that team that have been a real thorn in their side. Brad Marchand, David Pasternak, Charlie McAvoy. They've added different layers of that. They've added some physicality to their lineup as well this year with a guy like Costella coming in. But this is a team now, if you're Boston, they need to get their own ship right as well. I think you said 4-4-1, I believe their record is 500 hockey in hockey terms. But there will also be a team trying to get themselves going in this game today. And that's what I said with the Flyers. They can't worry about it. They're too far behind the 8 ball right now. I know people are saying it's early and they're 2-6 and 1, whatever the Flyers are, but it doesn't matter. You need to compile victories and do it quick so you can get into that pack and make sure you're fighting for one of those last playoff spots, unless you've had gone on a run like the Edmonton Oilers last year. You can't expect and ask teams to do what Edmonton did last year and make the playoffs and go to the Stanley Cup Finals. That happens once in a 1,000 times. Something like that will happen. So that's why it's so important getting these early wins right now for the Flyers and not having an excuse game like Montreal the other night. It's finding a way to get it done however you as a group have to get it done.
Bundy, let's talk about Travis Sanheim here for a minute, because a guy that obviously has gotten better over the time that John Tortorella has been here, but it just seems like with Cam York now stepping out of the lineup, he pairs with Rasmus Ristolainen and he finds another gear. What have you seen from him out of the last couple of games?
Better, the last 2 games. I mean, he's getting up the ice. I still like to see him pick his spots a little better in terms of what he did that. But I mean, listen, he got a goal the other night. Seeing eye shot, found eyes through a maze of bodies, and then he got the Flyers going when Montreal decided to get on the airplane 3 minutes before the game ended. He had that good shot over Primo. He's a guy. Listen, he gets paid a lot of money. That's number one defenseman money, and I think it was a good start. Picking up the pace for what they needed, and he's made Risto better, or has Risto made him better? I don't know, but I'll look forward to seeing that pair again tonight, Brian, and watching it with a little bit more intent.
But Bundy, the real question is it the high level of play sustainable? I'm not saying through a full 82 to be at that peak ultimate level that you can get to as a player, but I always say that you don't want the basement and the second floor to be so far apart. You'd like to have your worst game be a lot closer to your best game. And that's really about maturing as a player, is finding a way to close that gap between your best and your worst.
Yeah, and yet he's been here 500 games, right? Like you'd think
that's crazy.
It's a really, really long time to still call this a development, if you want to call it that. I don't call it a development. There comes a point in everyone's career where you got to figure it out. Like you got to figure out what you're going to be and who you're going to be, and then assert yourself with that. That's a good question, Jason, and it's a fair question too. But I just feel like it. Yes, the great players, the guys that do it really. Eric Desjardins, I'll use him. I don't even have to use another guy. He was so good because he played at high tempo every night, and his level of play was so in tune every single night. There was such
little drop off in his game when he was at his worst.
And when he had a bad game, everybody knew it because you were just never used to seeing it. And it would happen once, like maybe every 15 or 18 games.
Yeah, it's, again, one of the things that I feel like they've talked about with some of our younger defensemen is it takes a long time to learn the position. And I know we're talking 500 games. It's got to take less time than that.
No, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but you're looking at a guy like Jamie Drysdale, for instance, who he comes over last year in the trade and hadn't played a ton, really. He had some injuries. He had some issues in Anaheim. And I wonder if you got a guy like him here, and then now Emil Andre's up here. I mean, these guys are watching a guy like Travis Sanheim as an example at this point. It's not just a matter of him developing; it's how he's helping the other defensemen get along as well.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Eric Johnson, and I guess Ristolainen, he's been in the league longer. I mean, but that's not really, a guy like in terms of what he does defensively. They're trying to look offensively what a guy like that does in Sanheim. He makes some good plays, but I know what Jason's asking in the question, like his highs are high, but his lows are low. And how do you find the middle ground where you're not beating yourself down after the good efforts that you put together? That's what it is. You're going to have bad nights, and that's going to happen no matter what. You're going to have bad. It's almost like flipping a card, right? Like you have a deck of cards and you try to guess what the color is of that card to come out every single time. Some nights you're going to have 3 bad games in a row because that just happens to be what the colors came because you didn't get the bounce. Something didn't go your way. But through good effort and being smart and making right decisions with the puck and the right decisions defensively, you mitigate the amount of the times that card flips up the same one. And that's what he has. I don't think he's been able to do that yet as a pro.
Bundy, last question before we get to our first time out. And I want to take you back to your playing days again. You're halfway there with Desjardins. We're going to get you fully there with this question. Because when you played in this league, and as a top pairing defenseman, I talk to you about it all the time, it's so unforgiving because what you're playing against is the best players in the world and the top players in the top league in the world.
Yes.
But as a team, when things aren't going right, what is it that the team has to do collectively to get things moving in the right direction? Is it structure? What is it that gets things going in the right direction? Because you don't have results here through 9 games. You've had some really disjointed-looking play. Mm-hmm. What do they need to do based on your experience when you guys went through that as a player?
You know what? I remember Bob Clark, we played, every time he'd come down and address the team when things went south. It was like maybe every couple of years. When the GM came down, you didn't really want to hear him. But I remember the gist of his point was, if you guys play with a sense of organization and a semblance of defensive unity, if you defend hard together and you play hard for each other in your zone, the rest will take care of itself because you get the breakouts. And that and again, maybe he's talking to a different level of talent that team was. I mean, I'm going back to like 97, 98 here with a speech like that. I mean, it was a loaded
perennial
Flyers
cup contender year after year.
Every single year. So he may be speaking differently. Like a team like that goes in the funk, and people are wondering. This team goes in the funk, and we've become used to seeing it, and that's unfortunate. It really is, and that's a hard truth about watching hockey and watching your favorite team night after night. Is you see the inconsistencies and you see the consistency, sometimes for the good and the bad.
Yeah, great answer.
But that absolutely, I used to say that. That's how you come together as a group. If you pour it all in defensively in the zone and take care of your house, and then let the transition take care of itself. That's how you grow. That's
Crease
how
out.
you grow. Absolutely. And you got to play hard, because what you're doing when you're playing defense, you're playing hard for each other by making those plays. And then that's how you unify your group. And right now there's too many. One here, there's a guy there, there's someone else over here. There's no unity, there's no organization. And as a matter of fact, a Flyer brass the other night after their fourth goal, I happened to walk by them in the hallway, and they're like, where is the organization going right now? Like, not the team, but in terms of the ice. Like, it felt like there was no organization amongst the players on the ice in Montreal at that point in the hockey game, and it could get frustrated. And that was, of course, after the Montreal player broke the stick on the pass across the seam. And that would frustrate any brass watching. I just happened to get the crosshairs of it as I was walking to get a soda on the press box level.
Frustrated me. I said a bad word.
Yeah, it was.
A couple bad words.
It just felt like a meltdown. And let me tell you, Smitty, if you're saying it's Smitty, then it's a major problem. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely, buddy.
Let's take our first time out, and we'll come back. We're going to go to TD Garden, talk to Tim Saunders, a view from the booth of the Garden coming up, and much more here on Flyers Game Day. Stay tuned. Countdown to face off, all the first period action coming up at the top of the hour. We're back after this on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Tim, have a good call. Thanks. Tim Saunders and Todd Fedora coming up at the top of the hour with the countdown to face-off and first period from Boston. Bundy, I don't want to get into Pastrnak because I know he's going to be one of your keys for sure. There's no way of avoiding it that
maybe
he's
number one, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing is with Boston is they got other ways they can beat you, and they have guys. Flyers haven't done a good job limiting Pastrnak, as Tim just said, 1.39 points per game. You're going to try and do that. Is the strategy against a team like that where one guy really feasts on you to go, okay, we'll try and take him away and make you beat us with your inferior parts?
Yeah, and the problem is when you play a guy like Pastrnak up in Boston, you can't really manufacture the guys you want on the ice against them. So if you have an offensive zone face-off, I mean, you're going to try to get your top line out there to try to mitigate it if you can. But that's part of the problem when you play a guy like that, and he's feeling it. He's very much like Ovechkin was against the whole league, as Pastrnak is against the Flyers. He gets those one-timers, creative little plays in and around the net. He's been a real thorn in their side. So was Brad Marchand, who got his first goal the other day against the Maple Leafs, a game winner. They're just guys that really compete hard. It's part of what we were talking about, having that motor going. Your top players have to bring some life some nights, and these guys consistently do with their offense. Now, Pastrnak is a guy that's going to shoot. He's going to be creative, but you've got to have an accountability of where he is on the ice. That's your job. The top pair defenseman, if you're out there against him, you get that matchup tonight, you have to have situational awareness of where David Pastrnak is, or he's going to light you up all night long.
Yeah, this is a team, too, Bundy, that really has been able to reload these last couple of years. I mean, they won the President's Trophy 2 years ago. Last year, we thought they were going to be no good. But, they're able to add pieces like James Van Riemsdyk and give him a role that he was able to help in, and they were right there again. And then, now this year they've added a couple more pieces from outside and, again, off to a little bit of a sputtering start. But it's something how this team has been able to, just add pieces around guys like Pastrnak, Marchand. They stumbled into two really good goalies, so they're able to add assets by moving one of them. This is a little bit of I think, kind of a point where the Flyers want to get to someday in this rebuild.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, and you have to do it through the draft, right? Like if you look at what Boston's done, they've got a lot of really good players through the draft, some creative trades as well. But that's how they've done it. That's what you want to build to. Boston has been relevant for many, many years, and it's because of the core, the top of the team. It was Bergeron before. He was the captain, but he transcended it to those other players, to Pastrnak, and now Marchand, who's trying to carry the torch for the twilight of his career. So, I think that's a great model. If you can be the Boston Bruins and fill in a lot of parts, have guys that want to come to your team in free agency, that want to be a part of the organization, want to be Philadelphia Flyers, that's what you want. And I think with Boston, they've added some size in the offseason. They are a physical group, but certainly I think the Flyers, when you look at what they've done and how they've been able to be a meaningful hockey team, without the Stanley Cup, of course, they fell short 2 years ago, was really their year against the Panthers. But they are certainly a team that I think you can emulate in terms of building your franchise.
Culturally, Bundy, they're a bit of a throwback, aren't they? I mean, you go from Chara. Bergeron was there for a lot of Chara's career, but then, Chara retires. And Bergeron's still there to keep the culture bleeding forward. And then Bergeron retires, and Marchand's there to now translate it to the next chapter. That culture, the reason why it sustains is because there's elements that are dragging it into the next group.
Correct, and it's doing things the right way. It's making the right plays. It's doing the right things at right times of the game.
Being a Bruin.
Yeah, I mean and it's again a little bit what you were saying earlier about the young defenseman Smitty watching and emulating a guy like Sanheim. Guys were doing that with Zdeno Chara, and look at what that's done to their careers. So I mean it does. It takes a big guy sometimes up front or on the back end, and you learn a lot. But you learn a lot about the messaging too, what it's like to be a winner. There's still guys. Brad Marchand won a cup there. Be a win as a Boston Bruin. Be the same as a Flyer. You want to win as a Philadelphia Flyer. You're gonna have a great leader take you to that promised land. I can promise you that. And I think that's kind of where this team's at right now. And And Boston's been there. They may be running out of it a little bit, Jace. Their tank may be emptying. We'll see. I mean, they're trying to reload to stay relevant with that core. But I think with a guy like Pasternak and keeping him healthy, they're going to have a good team for a lot of years.
Yeah, and you're right. He's a guy that will shoot from anywhere. That's why I was real happy to see Sam Ersson getting the start tonight, because he's played against him before. First-time goalie playing against Pasternak seems like red meat to a lion.
Yep.
It's one of those things. All right, let's take our last time out. We've got coming up line combinations, any lineup changes. We'll talk about all that. And we'll get Bundy's 3 keys to victory. And he said, enough is enough. Actually, I said enough is enough, going back to what Bundy said last year. So we'll get to that and much more. Stay tuned. Philadelphia Flyers hockey coming up at the top of the hour. We're back after this on the Flyers Broadcast Network. And we are back as the Philadelphia Flyers get set to take on the Boston Bruins at the top of the hour. Stay tuned to the countdown to face-off and all the first period action with Tim Saunders, Top Fedora coming up. Let's get to the line combinations before we get to Bundy's 3 keys to victory. Flyers top line, nothing changing here. Couturier, Mishkov, and Konechny. Frost going to play on the second line. Bundy, so he was benched in the one game for the final 15 minutes, I think, so against maybe Minnesota. And then he was on the fourth line against Montreal. Now he's back on the second line with Tippett and Forster. What do you think of the Tippett and Forster on one line together? 2 right wingers, one guy on his offside, and both guys struggling. All 3 of those guys struggling.
Well, that's what they're trying to do, trying to get somebody going. I would have thought Frost was actually going to be out of the lineup tonight, to be honest with you. I would have thought that when they were just the way Torts kind of gets things going. Yeah, it's a chance for 3 guys that need to get themselves going to use each other to try to provide themselves a spark offensively. I mean, when you're sitting there with those 2 guys, and I've seen this before, believe me, they're relying on each other. They're each other's best friends today. They'll try to rely on each other to try to get some offense going. And I look for a big effort from those 3 guys, as a matter of fact.
Lawton going to play alongside Joel Farabee. Lawton in the middle, by the way.
Yep.
And Bobby Brink draws back in to making way for him is Nick Delarier, who played I think 3 straight games if I'm recalling correctly.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. I believe so. Yes, that's correct, Jason. Yep.
He only had the 1 fight.
Yeah, that was the first game that he.
His first shift with McElrath.
Yeah, with McElrath. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought maybe there would have been another opportunity, especially when we saw that Mishkov took a little shrapnel from David Savard in that Montreal game. Kind of coming across the front, and Savard kind of turns in and gets a little headshot in there. Maybe drew a little bit of blood there on the old lip, too. So we didn't see anything out of that. Kate's going to play on the wing with Hathaway, and Ryan Poehling going to center the Flyers' fourth line. Sanheim, Ristolainen, who we talked about, Sealer and Drysdale. And Bundy, Emil Andre stays in the lineup tonight, playing with Eric Johnson on that third pair again.
Got to let him play to get him see how he's feeling. Zamul is still out?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, I'd leave Andre in, give him another chance. I thought his game was unbalanced the other day. I don't think he played bad, but I don't think he played great either. Give him an opportunity to come in and play, get his feet under him, and let's see what he can do tonight. It's the kind of game you want to see what guys are made out of. See what you're made of. It's a big game. It's a team that we have had not had a lot of success against. Your backs are against the wall if you're the Flyers. I know Boston's thinking the same thing. They're trying to build on their win from Saturday against Toronto, but this is a huge game tonight for the Flyers. I can't understate that.
Let's get to the Bundy. By the way, Sam Ersson gets the start for the Flyers
Yes.
tonight in this one. We'll see what his usage is like this week with having no back-to-backs. And you have Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday game. Could he get all three? We'll see. That'll be a story for another day. But let's get to the Bundy 3 keys to victory. Key number 1, Bundy.
Yeah, well, the first one actually, it is be aware. Well, I said Pasta 1. Pasta's 2. The first one is the start. We're going to go with the start tonight. The Flyers have not had the kind of start they wanted. They did against Minnesota. They ended up winning, but Montreal had the lead. They ended up crawling to 4-1. You can't win the hockey game in the first 10 minutes, but you can end up chasing the hockey game with a bad start, and you don't want to do that. So the start's number 1 for me. Number 2 tonight, 5-unit defensive effort that must be aware of David Pastrnak and his line mates. He's lethal. We talked about it. He can score from anywhere on the ice, particularly on with his one-timer. They have got to do a job on him. Whoever's on the ice against Pastrnak and company has got to lock that down that game. And last thing tonight, Jace, they're giving away too many penalties per game, giving too many opportunities. The Flyers have got to stay out of the penalty box tonight. Don't give Boston any added ammo. I know I say it often, and you probably heard it before, but out of the penalty box, they've got to cut back on the amount of penalty minutes they're taking by game.
Bundy, it's a special weekend here, or special night, I guess. It's the Moms trip. Moms are here. They'll be here Thursday as well when the Flyers host St. Louis. But I'm sure for a player and getting to, all the years they spent as a very young player, coming up with their parents, it's got to be a bit of a treat to have that along for this one.
Moms deserve every bit the credit that dads get. They feel that dads are the ones that yell more at the kids when they get in the car, and the moms are the ones that secure the kid and help them all out and everything. That's how the world works. So, yes, the moms deserve the trip every bit as much as the dads.
That is so true. Dad
That's totally true.
Dad's trying to coach you up on the way home, telling you what you screwed up. Mom's like, "Oh, it's okay. You guys got blitzed 9-1." I'll go, "I gave up 9 goals. There's nothing okay about that."
She's still happy though, right? She's still happy. Little Jason's doing well. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's the Flyers and the Bruins. Bundy, in this game tonight, you saw the Flyers get off to a good start on a couple of occasions this year, only to kind of take that one step forward, and then just these small windows. Sometimes it's 3 minutes in a game that can just absolutely undo your chances to win it. As much as that good start, got to avoid, if you give up one, you give up one. Don't let one turn into 2 to 3.
That's exactly right. And you know what? I mean, yeah, if you have an early lead, don't let it snowball. That's going to be a key. And that's what Boston has had success against the Flyers.
Yeah.
Is pouring it on. It was the Hall of Fame game last year. The Flyers did not respond well. It was the one after that where that's when we said, enough's enough. I've just had enough of the Bruins. I know the Flyers have had enough of them for that game last year. And hopefully we can see the similar recipe and a similar response here tonight up in at the TD Garden. I don't like Boston. They've had too much success against this team. And it would be a really, really huge springboard, I think, for the Flyers to go up there and get 2 points tonight. They desperately need it as well. Enough
is enough. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedora coming up with the countdown to face-off, followed by all the first period action between the Flyers and the Bruins. You've been listening to the Flyers Fanatic pregame show on the Flyers Broadcast Network.